There's too many books and not enough time to read them all. That's the fear of missing out. And that's something that every reader, myself included, has to deal with. It's a horrible feeling, but I promise you there's a way to fix it. There's 5 principles I want to talk about today that help me overcome that fear and to read with confidence and read knowing that even though I have limited time, I'm going to get the best out of my reading life. Just before that though, I want you to imagine a time when you walk into a bookshop, and I'm sure you felt this, I know you have. You walk into a bookshop and you see the sheer number of books there and you think, how in the hell am I going to read all of this? How with so many books can I even make a dent in any of them? And it's almost a crippling feeling because you think, I read 3 books in the past month or 2? How am I going to get through all of this stuff? But these ideas, they're the sorts that will have you walking into those bookshops and not thinking that. You'll be able to be confident in the direction you're going in. Okay, so with all that said, what are the 5 strategies to cutting out FOMO? Well, the first is, and I want you to recall this moment where you walk into the bookshop and see all these books. The idea is that most books suck. Most of them suck. You walk into the bookshop and it's not like you're missing out on all these books because you don't want to read them anyway. There's billions of people out there. A tiny fraction of them have written books, and an even tinier fraction are books that you would find interesting. So we've already narrowed down that pool. A lot of that FOMO is already cut out because you know that walking into a bookshop, most of them aren't for you, and you know most of them you will not enjoy if you read them. So when I had that in mind, it was kind of comforting because I know that the pool of books that I want to deal with is not actually that big. Sure, it's probably in the thousands, but that's more manageable than hundreds of thousands or millions. You know, we can work with that. We can distill the finest and the best books of that, which is actually a future one, a future tip. But we can work with that. And we can't work with hundreds of thousands of books because that quite simply is impossible. And it means suddenly you can make a dent in your reading goals and you can read almost all of the books you intend to if you orient your reading life seriously and have a strategy to approach them. Now, the second technique is my favorite. And with this, I think with this alone, you can destroy the fear of missing out. And it's to only read the best books. Because as we said, there's a tiny fraction of books that appeal to you out of all of them. How can you have the fear of missing out if you're reading some of the best books ever written? Because let's slow down for a second. What actually is the fear of missing out? The fear of missing out is when you are doing something or not doing something at all, and you have the idea that you could be doing something better, or you could be experiencing something that you're not. But let's say you pick the best books, the only the finest reads out there, and you read it. How can you then look at another person's book or another book on the shelf and think, oh, I really wish I could be reading that? Because you then have to look back at your own situation and think, I'm reading one of the best books written ever, the most highly acclaimed ones, the most interesting ones. So how can I be dissatisfied with my situation when the opposite situation is either the same or worse? You know, I'll use the example of, say, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Now, I don't know if that book is to your taste, but for many, it's one of the best books of all time. So if you're reading a book like that, you can't really look at another book and think, wow, I could be using my time much better, because you probably couldn't. You're reading one of your favorite books and one of the books that is giving you the most value. So how can another book be promising you more if you're already reading some of the finest ones? That's easier said than done, though. Reading only the best books, because the best books are not the best books for everyone. They're the best books for you, and you need a way to find them so you can be happy with what you're reading and avoid that fear of reading something better, because there isn't anything better. There's 4 small tips I would use to find the best books for you. The first is to find what you already love and build up from there. Think about your interests, think about your favorite books, and try and almost branch out from there. Similar books, the same authors, and with that frame of reference, you can find more books you love based on what you already love. The second approach is to look at what receives the most praise. And I know that's not the most strong approach. It's not like whatever's popular is good necessarily, but if you have a book that you have your eye on and you find interesting, and it also receives tons of praise from people you admire, people you don't know, it's a good sign. And it's a good sign to pick that up and see what the hype is about. But of course, that's only true to a degree. The third tip is perhaps the most important, and it's to inspect the book before reading it. If you think a book is good and you dive straight in, you may be wrong. And you may think, well, I'm a few chapters in, this is quite disappointing actually, and I'm going to abandon it. But you can avoid that situation altogether by inspecting the book, studying it before you start reading for real, so that you can see if it's worth a deeper look and a proper diving into. And you can do that by, you study the title, you read the blurb and see what the book is actually about. You look at the contents page to see the structure and to see what you can expect from each chapter. Most people stop there, but you can even dive into some of the concluding paragraphs or the important sentences. And that will give you an idea of what the author's saying. You can just see from the pages that if it excites you and if you want to have a deeper look. And number 4, as you keep reading, and maybe you're a seasoned reader already, but as you keep reading, you build up that intuition of what you like. You become familiar with your own tastes, and then you kind of know what you're going to like. Choosing a book becomes much easier. So those are 4 small tricks for finding the best books for you, and then using that to deal with FOMO. Because you can never walk away from a book you loved thinking, I wish I read something better, because you were reading something great already. It's worked wonders for me. Now, number 3 is a hard truth for some, and it was a hard truth for me, but it's to simply read more. Of course, the fear of missing out is there's too many books and not enough time to read them. But then if you just read more, you will get through more books, inevitably. And sometimes the obvious solutions work best. And this is one of them. Because if you can build a schedule, and that's the important thing, a schedule that allows you to get a significant chunk of reading in, and if you maintain that on a daily basis, then you can't reach your old age thinking, damn, I should have read more, I didn't read enough. Because you did all you could. Most of the time I read for an hour a day, consistently. Because I know 1 hour is a pretty good chunk of time for reading, I can't be disappointed with myself. Because I know I'm putting the effort in, I'm putting the time in. So a year down the line, I'm not going to be disappointed with myself because I know I put 1 hour of reading in per day for almost every day. And actually at the point where you do put all the effort in, FOMO becomes irrational. You've already done so much for your reading and you've already put the effort in. The idea of doing more is irrational. It's impossible. And I found that making it an irrational concept, the fear of missing out, made it so much easier for me to deal with it. FOMO can affect you easily when you know you're not doing enough to achieve your goals. But if you're putting in the work, the time, and the effort, you can't possibly be mad at yourself or be disappointed in yourself, because you're doing everything you can. So give that a shot and I really hope it works for you. I've just realized I've been lying to you this whole time. It's actually 4 tips, not 5. But I don't feel guilty because the 4th is a good one. And it's the idea that time spent learning is time well spent. I'm a slow reader. I read slow. I don't read many books a year. I probably read up to 24, no more than that. Maybe once every 2 weeks, even less. I'm happy with that. I'm satisfied because I know I choose good books that are dense in wisdom and insight and the books I like to read, and I take it slow. I go through them thoroughly and I distill the finest ideas. I make extensive notes on them. And even though I'm not reading for a lot of that, I'm still learning and I'm still absorbing new ideas and constantly discovering new things. But how does that help me avoid FOMO, the fear of missing out? In the past, I might have thought, what am I doing? I'm only reading 12 books a year. I could be reading the next book or the next book or the next book. But then I slow down and reflect on what I'm doing. I'm writing careful notes here. I'm distilling ideas. I'm putting them in my own words. I'm learning. So how can I look at what I'm doing currently, which is learning and being thorough with it? How can I look at then the next thing and think I should be doing that instead? No, I shouldn't be, because time spent learning is valuable time. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter where you're learning from. Time spent learning is valuable time. So I can't regret that I'm learning to then go on to the next book and do the exact same thing, If I had the fear of missing out, all I would be doing is taking my learning from one book, stopping that for a second, going to the next book and doing the exact same thing there. So where's the logic in that? There's no rationality. There's no rationality in missing out because I'm not missing out. I'm doing exactly what I intended to do. I find that if I spend my time learning, I can't feel guilty that I'm not spending it learning somewhere else. And again, it all ties back to the idea of making FOMO irrational. There are times when FOMO is almost valid because you know you could be doing something. But in this case, I couldn't be doing any better. And that's it. Those are the 4 techniques and mindsets used to combat the fear of missing out. Of course, you still get it. It's inevitable. You still suffer from it sometimes. But if you can apply those 4 tenets, then you have the groundworks for not having that fear and being confident in your reading life and steering it in a good direction so you can be happy with where you're going and the path you're walking. So as always, I hope at least one of them helps you. I hope at least one of them changes how you read. And I'd love to hear any strategies that you've used or any experiences you've had with the same problem, because I know it's a common thing that affects a lot of people. And of course, as always, thank you for watching.